Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again in CP time. What's good with y'all, man? My apologies for being late as hell. You know what I'm saying? But we still gonna get it popping anyway. So shout out to everybody that is in the building. If you guys can hear me okay, please give me a thumbs up or radiation emoji in the chat. If you guys cannot hear me, give me a thumbs down or an angry face. All right, I'm gonna shout out I'm gonna shout out to Replay Gang, and I'm gonna shout out everybody that's in the building early. We got Brooklyn Queen in the house. We got Jazz Terra. We got Denise Scales. We got Papanea Shelley. We got Jesse Paris. We got Jet Black, and we got Hurricane IQ on the replay. All right, good to see each and every one of y'all. And I hope the Replay Gang, make sure when y'all watch this on the replay, y'all hashtag Replay Gang in the comments. Y'all gonna really want to watch this one because it's a lot of information in here that we are gonna be talking about. All right, so let's get into it. All right, the first thing that we about to do is check out this clip from News Nation. All right, this clip right here is talking about sanctuary cities sending mixed messages on bus policies. All right, because as you guys know, Chicago started a bus policy to try to stop rogue buses, and New York followed suit. Now, I don't know if any other cities are going to do that, but that seems to be what they're all doing. And the interesting thing about it, which is another thing that we predicted, is that this is not stopping the bus situation at all whatsoever. So let's check this out.
More insight into this and the latest on the southern border, let's bring in former U.S. Border Patrol Chief Ron Vitello. He's also served as the acting director of ICE under the Trump administration and is currently a candidate for the U.S. Senate in Virginia. Ron, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I want to jump right in there because I have so many questions for you. The pressure cities like New York and Chicago are feeling trace back to the overwhelming number of people illegally crossing into the U.S. right now, sitting at approximately 10,000 per day. Now, talks of a new border security deal are ongoing, but in the meantime, is there anything we can do now to stop that migrant surge?
Thanks for inviting me, Nick. Yeah, we can go back to policies that allow for a more orderly flow at the border and reduce the traffic, reduce the incentives that people have from all over the world that come across the border illegally every single day. That's what could happen immediately. That could be done by the administration. That could be done by the front line at DHS if they were given those tools. But that's not where we're at. So the suffering continues for the people in the pipeline. The suffering continues for the cities on the border. And we see the impact in places like New York, LA, and Denver. Again, they're saying, hey, well, we're not going to stop anybody from coming. We want them to come in certain times, and we're going to facilitate their entry into shelter in our cities. And so there's a mixed message being sent from those cities to Washington and to the rest of the world. And our immigration policy at the border, what we're allowing to happen is just going to encourage more traffic. As you said, 10,000 a day. They've done a lot of augmentation in the last several years, but this still overwhelms what's going on, the facilities in the front line of DHS.
Ron, let's pick up on that mixed message that you just talked about, because I hear a mixed message as well. We want to take them at a certain amount of time. Oh, can you let us know when they're coming? That's a courtesy that they're asking to be extended that Texas is not seeing right now, or these border states.
Now, that part right there, what he just said, that's literally exactly what I've been saying about this. When you're on the border, when you're in Texas, you really don't get an announcement of all of these people that show up at the border. You have no idea when they're coming. Sometimes, if they're lucky, they'll hear about something like this migrant caravan that's coming. But in most cases, you don't happen to get a warning. Just boom, all of these people are there. So it's interesting how these sanctuary cities expect a courtesy that the border cities are not getting. Now, the border cities could actually do that, but I think what's going on here is that the border cities are trying to replicate the situations that they have to face for the sanctuary cities to kind of prove the point to the sanctuary cities that this isn't as easy as you guys think that it is. And shout out to Young Nine and shout out to Brianna Campbell. What's good with y'all? Welcome to the stream.
They have no idea when migrants are coming, and they have no idea how many are coming. And now it seems as though many of these sanctuary cities are having to bear the brunt of what Texas and others have been screaming we need help for a while.
That's correct. Imagine the mayor of Eagle Pass, or the citizens that live on the border in Eagle Pass and Lukeville, Arizona, and Yuma, Arizona. They've been overwhelmed for years now with this traffic. Does the mayor of New York suggest that those people should stay in Eagle Pass? Because they're not equipped to handle this either. And so, again, this is a mixed message. This is us saying, in New York, the quandary is, okay, we're going to shelter everybody that shows up. We just want them to show up at certain times. Like you said, what about Eagle Pass? What about the front line at DHS and CBP? They have no ability whatsoever to say no to those folks that are coming across the border illegally every single day, every 24 hours in the thousands.
Ron, you're running for an office that could possibly help to craft legislation to shift and work on this policy. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas met with President of Mexico this week. Now, according to a joint statement, both the U.S. and Mexico reaffirmed their existing commitments on fostering an orderly, humane, and regular migration, but no specific action was taken. Is that enough? Another meeting is planned for next month in Washington. What needs to be done?
Well, we need to.
So what they're saying, for the most part, is exactly what we said. When they went down to Mexico, and shout out to DeAndre, appreciate you being a like enforcer, bro. When they went down to Mexico, they did not do anything. They didn't get anything accomplished. And if anything, the Mexican president basically reinforced that he's not really going to do anything to help with the situation that we have going on at the southern border at all. So when it comes to this situation, the United States, they just on their own, and the Biden administration is not really interested or showing any interest in dealing with this situation. You know what I mean?
Use policies that disincentivize people from coming from all over the world, crossing our border illegally, most of them coming through Mexico. And so when I read the reporting about what happened in Mexico City, we've agreed, the United States, to look at sponsorships for Haiti, Cuba, and Venezuela. I'm not sure why we would do that, and I'm not sure why Mexico thinks that's in their interest or ours. They talked about they're going to open the bridges that are closed now because of this unprecedented flow. And then they want to talk in January about amnesty and DACA. That is the wrong message. If you're going to grade what happened at that meeting based on this reporting, it's a complete failure.
Ron, you're running for Senate.
And that's exactly what we figured it would be. That's exactly what we figured it would be. We figured that it would be nothing but a bunch of tequila drinking, nothing but a bunch of chalupa eating, nothing but a bunch of Dos Equis sipping nonsense. And that's all that happened.
Candidacy is successful. May we hold you accountable?
Absolutely. Chief Vitello for Senate.org if people want to learn more.
Ron Vitello, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and Happy New Year to you and your family.
Happy New Year. Thanks.
All right, so there's that. So next, we're going to take a trip up to Chicago, except for our plane isn't going to be chartered, and it's not going to be paid for by taxpayer dollars. It's going to be courtesy of Google Chrome. And what's going on in Chicago is that there was some C-19 money, approximately $95 million of C-19 money. And that C-19 money was used to staff migrant shelters. Now, they've already done an expose on this situation, and we know that this migrant shelter staffing company is a healthcare company, which is interesting because a lot of the migrants are sick and spreading illnesses throughout these migrant shelters, so much to the point that many migrants have gone to the hospitals and is now overflowing the healthcare system in Chicago. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the boy was 5 years old. There was a 5-year-old child that died. But this news clip here reiterates the wasted money gone to these no-bid contracts that the mayor, Brandon Johnson, is shelling out to these companies who are staffing these migrant shelters. Now, let me ask you guys this question. Is there anybody here that could think of a better use for $95 million in leftover C-19 aid to spend on than this? If you know of anything, drop it in the comment section.
We begin here tonight at 6 with the migrant crisis. CBS 2 has learned the city has spent more than they planned to care for asylum seekers, now having to dip into federal COVID funds. And with just a few days left until the new year, Mayor Brandon Johnson says Chicago is also running out of room to house people. CBS 2's Sabrina Franza live for us tonight in the newsroom. Sabrina?
Joe, the city of Chicago had to take $95 million from their American Rescue Plan pot this year. Sources say much of that spending is meant to cover staffing at the city's migrant shelter. The Johnson administration is looking to repurpose COVID relief money without putting it to city council for a vote.
We have infrastructure in our.
So again, I want you guys to see they're not taking this stuff to city council. Now, my question for you guys is, why are they not taking this stuff to city council for a vote? Now, I find it hilarious and ironic that the Democrats, they're always talking about people who are trying to stop or slow democracy. But what we're actually watching right here is indeed the Democrats attempting to supersede democracy and bypass the city council and make these decisions on their own. People should really be paying attention to who it is that's using these tactics and why these tactics are being used?
Local communities that are not designed to carry such a burden.
Mayor Brandon Johnson in his latest plea to Washington, asking the federal government to help fund a crisis he has said is costing the city around $40 million a month.
Local municipalities are not structured to be able to carry the weight of a crisis like this.
With just days left until the new year.
So now, again, this is what I was talking about. And this is what we're seeing right here. What we're seeing is Chicago starting to sound like New York City. We're starting to see Chicago sounding like New York City. If you guys agree, Chicago is starting to sound like New York City, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree and you think something else is going on, then please let me know in the comment section what it is that you think is going on. Shout out to Jazz Terra. What's good with it?
Administration tells CBS 2 that the city took in more tax dollars than they were expecting in 2023. That allowed them to use $95 million of money, which was given to the city through the American Rescue Plan for day-to-day government operations, to cover migrant expenses instead. Sources tell
So let's just run this back real quick. My question to everybody watching this right now is, what was the purpose of the American Rescue Plan? What was the American Rescue Plan designed for? Why was the American Rescue Plan put in place? Real simple question. Was the American Rescue Plan put in place to fund migrant issues? Easy questions, right? And real quick, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 16 people watching and we got 14 likes. If everybody can bang on that like button and get us to 20, that would be awesome.
And for day-to-day government operations, to cover migrant expenses instead. Sources tell CBS 2 that most of that COVID money went towards favored healthcare staffing.
There it is right there.
Tasked with
favorite healthcare staffing. All right, so we've talked about this before. Favorite healthcare staffing. Now, this building right here that we're looking at with the graffiti on the side of it, this is that migrant shelter, if I'm not mistaken, where the 5-year-old boy passed away of an unknown cause. Favorite healthcare staffing. This is a healthcare staffing company. The question that we got to ask is, how is it that a healthcare staffing company is not capable of keeping the people who are being housed there healthy? It's kind of rhetorical, isn't it?
With caring for migrants at city-run shelters. Next year's city budget only allocated $150 million to assist migrants.
The international crisis that we are experiencing right now is being subsidized by local economies. That is not sustainable.
For the first time, the mayor's said that Chicago's running out of space.
You know, families that are, they're living or staying in buses right now. That's been difficult to hear.
Pastor John Zayas is the senior pastor of Grace and Peace Church, one of the 10 churches working with the Johnson administration to help house and place migrants. 245 asylum seekers are in their care right now. The goal is 375.
We understand what the bottlenecks, what's creating this bottleneck. It's the lack of, the work permits. If the federal government doesn't move fast enough, it's too slow for what's happening.
Now, I want to ask you guys a question. Is it the lack of work permits that's causing these bottlenecks? According to this individual here, it's the lack of work permits that's causing the bottlenecks. If you guys agree with him that it's the lack of work permits causing the bottlenecks, give me a thumbs up. If you all feel that it's the amount of people who are encountering the southern border and being released into the country, then give me a thumbs down, all right?
Folks are finding themselves on the street because the government's not responding.
Now, sources tell CBS 2 the Johnson administration is thinking about consolidating shelters or even closing some of them in the new year. We reached out to the mayor's office about all of that, and they told us there are no plans right now to close anything. In the newsroom, Sabrina Franza, CBS 2 News.
All right, so there's that. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the migrant buses that showed up in New York City. Okay, because as everybody knows, Mayor Eric Adams just came out with an announcement that he created some rules, and he created these rules in an attempt to slow down the impact of the quote unquote rogue buses. Just like we suspected, nobody cares. So we're going to take a look. Okay.
turn now to the latest on the asylum seeker crisis, growing even more tense overnight. 6 more buses filled with migrants arrived at Port Authority. This was just hours after Mayor Adams issued that new executive order requiring bus companies to give 32 hours notice before arriving in the city. No law enforcement action was taken this morning, but that will change going forward. Violating the executive order could result in fines, confiscation of buses, even jail time. Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles live at Port Authority right now in Midtown with more. Darla.
So now I want everybody to understand what's going on here. The situation that we have going on here is that these people who own legitimate bus businesses who are not violating the law, using their bus businesses to do what their bus businesses were made for, are being penalized for doing business and taking contracts, while the people who are coming into the country illegally are not. Does that make any sense whatsoever? If you ask me, that makes absolutely no sense. And another thing it makes is it makes the local, state, and federal governments of the United States look like complete spineless jokes and pushovers.
Michelle, that 32-hour grace period ended around midnight tonight. But as you mentioned, the buses that arrived overnight were giving a little latitude because that was an extended grace period. But the mayor's office says 32 hours is enough time to let them know via email that they are coming with a busload of migrants, because 32 hours is how long it takes to drive from Texas to New York City. The coast is clear near the intersection of West 41st Street and 8th Avenue at Port Authority Friday. Buses packed with tourists came and left all day. As for those transporting migrants, not one in sight on the first day of a 3.5-hour window for drop-offs ended at noon. But some 12 hours earlier, 6 buses transporting hundreds of migrants showed up without any warning at all. This unscheduled arrival happening just after a 32-hour grace period ended to enforce new charter bus regulations. The mayor's office addressing the violation, saying moving forward, the NYPD will be monitoring the loading zone outside of the specified hours and gathering evidence against these companies to potentially fine them and impound buses.
It's about collaboration and turning this disorder into order.
Mayor Adams joining the mayors of Chicago and Denver on CNN Friday morning, the second time in just 1 week. The three appearing in solidarity Wednesday when Adams issued an executive order for bus companies transporting migrants that requires at least a 32-hour notice, restricts drop-offs to Port Authority.
So now, again, they don't get any notification on the border when all these migrants come. But these mayors of these 3 cities think that they should get a notification when migrants show up from the border cities. That these notifications that they're asking for, now, mind you, it probably would make the process a lot easier. I'm not denying that. But that's a luxury. And I don't think that they understand that. That's a luxury. Would you guys agree? That's a luxury that the border states do not have. If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down.
Monday through Friday between 8:30 a.m. and noon, and requires a manifest of everyone on board.
With that executive order, we're saying that between a certain period of time, you're allowed to drop off migrants in the city, but you're going to do it at the location that we specify so we don't overtax our resources, our manpower.
But the true test of this executive order will likely happen during the overnight hours, after 4 buses arrived without notice overnight Wednesday. And last week, the mayor's office said 14 buses arrived in the middle of the night. Now, warning letters have already been sent to bus companies the mayor's office has identified as repeat offenders, and those individuals or corporations face up to a $2,000 fine and up to 3 months in jail.
So there's that. All right. So what we're going to look at next is we're going to look at your boy, Brandon Johnson, because I actually want to find that meeting with the Denver mayor and Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, and Eric Adams, but I haven't been able to find it yet. Let me see. Yeah, I haven't been able to find it. So if there is anybody that has that clip, if you guys could send it into the Discord, or if you guys can tag me in it on Twitter or on Facebook or something, that would be great. I'd really appreciate that. And shout out to Jazz Terra. Jazz Terra says houses cost over $1 million. Most can't afford, but these migrants will get bank loans to purchase these homes easy. Yeah, facts. And again, now mind you, they keep saying that these people are quote unquote hardworking, but they're coming over here not only for jobs because they know that the jobs aren't available if they don't have their documents straight, but they're getting the cash assistance. And that's just getting downplayed, which I think is interesting.
Well, since taking office a little bit over 7 months ago, my administration has responded to this humanitarian mission with the full force of government. We have roughly 15,000 people living in shelters, temporary shelters here in Chicago, nearly 27 shelters total, 4,500 children in our Chicago public schools system, providing healthcare, and also making sure that we are screening individuals as they come through the city of Chicago, providing, again, on-site vaccinations at all of.
Now, here goes my question. How, again, what kind of screening are you doing if the people don't have any documents? How do you screen when there's no documentation? How does that work? I don't know how that happens. See, because when you screen, you're supposed to be screening based on the information that you have about somebody based on the background. You know what I'm saying? But that's not what's going on. So how do you do that? How does that work? Shout out to DeAndre. DeAndre says this is a robot. Yeah, this is Brandon Tip-Headed Johnson. Facts. You know what I'm saying? Hershey Kisshead Johnson. It doesn't make sense. And see, you could tell. See, remember how he used to have that slick smile on his face and everything was funny and he was always laughing? He ain't laughing anymore. He looking dead serious these days, isn't he? It's amazing how people's faces change.
Of our shelters, and this certainly has been a remarkable challenge that my administration has had to face, and quite frankly, a challenge that we are experiencing all over the country. But let me just say this to make this very clear. What I've said repeatedly is that we have to have coordination. Since taking office, we've had an uncoordinated approach, and what I've worked to do, instead of having chaos, is provide some structure and calm around the situation.
And y'all got me dying laughing. This dude hair look like the end of a Jimmy hat. His hair look like the collection duct of a Jimmy hat, don't it? Eggplant with a balloon over it. You know what I'm saying? It's clown.
Without significant federal support, this is not sustainable. Well, what I mean by uncoordinated, what Governor Abbott is doing is, quite frankly, it's reckless. I had a delegation to actually go to the border and see firsthand the challenges that our bordering states and our bordering cities are experiencing right now. And what I've called for repeatedly is, again,
oh man, hey, that's gonna be his new name. That's his new name, Brandon Jimmy Head Johnson. Brandon Trojan Johnson. You know what I'm
saying? State and local municipalities so that we can address this crisis. As far as what the federal government is doing, look, I've said repeatedly that we need more resources, and I've asked for $15 billion for the entire country. I know I have a congressional delegation here in Illinois that has asked for $10 billion. Look, the technical support that we receive from the federal government, we appreciate that. Work authorization to put people on a pathway to sustainability, I certainly appreciate that. And without real significant investment from our federal government, it won't just be the city of Chicago that won't be able to maintain this mission. It's the entire country that is now at stake.
Oh, so now the entire country is now at stake. The entire country is now at stake. Do you see? Look at him. His eyes roll back in the back of his head so he can get his upload of new information. His eyes is rolled up in his head so they can Bluetooth that new information into his mechanical brain. You know what I'm saying? Brandon Johnson is now sounding like how Eric Adams is. All of these mayors of all of these sanctuary cities are now starting to sing the same song, the same way that we figured that they would. And the reason why that's happening is because all the money's dried up. All the resources have dried up. Now they're going to try to go to the federal government to get more money. And the federal government's like, we got wars to fight. And we got reparations to not pay. So we're not going to really be giving you anything. And you better still take care of this business that we have going on, or else we're going to go dig up some information on you. That's what's going to happen. Shout out to Jesse. What's good with it, bro?
But in no way what the state of Texas is doing is helping the cause. As much as we recognize that there are challenges, significant challenges at the border, and we do need real substantive immigration reform and policies that allow us to have a structure and a pathway to citizenship. But again, sending buses all over the state of Illinois and all over the country is reckless and quite frankly is dangerous. I met with 80 mayors just last Friday to have a more coordinated approach for the state of Illinois, along with county officials. That is what is required in this moment, a real sophisticated coordination while also pushing the federal government to provide the resources and support so that we can actually sustain this mission. Anything short of that, quite frankly, is reckless. Well, what we've seen is, again, repeatedly, is that when the migrants are arriving in the city of Chicago, or New York or anywhere else for that matter, there's not a real coordinated approach to make sure that migrants and those who are seeking asylum are getting the services that they need at the border.
Now, how are they supposed to coordinate anything at the border when they don't know when these people are going to show up and they don't know how many people are going to show up? That's my question. Shout out to Shamika. What's good with it? Does that make any sense? And real quick, also shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 24 people watching and we got 21 likes. If everybody can bang on that like button and get us to 30, that'd be great.
There's no screenings, there's no health checks, there's no vaccinations. Well, it's all connected. It's not an isolated dynamic. And what I've said repeatedly, the lack of coordination, and I'll get to it, I promise, the lack of coordination is causing the amount of turmoil and stress. We're talking about individuals who have suffered miles, thousands of miles of treachery, quite frankly, to get to the border. And so what we've seen, and I've expressed this here, is that lack of coordination has caused tremendous stress. Now, as far as this little boy that unfortunately passed away, I've offered and I continue to offer my deepest condolences to the family. And there is no evidence at this point, and we're still waiting as more and more evidence, as we go through investigation here, as more and more evidence comes to fruition, there's no evidence that the condition of the shelter caused the death of this young boy. What I've built.
Now, remember, Brandon Johnson also said the investigation at Brighton Park showed that Brighton Park would be a viable site for the migrant encampment, which upon further review, it showed that there was toxic levels of certain chemicals. So if you ask me, Brandon Johnson has kind of deteriorated his ability to be trusted as far as when it comes to his judgment on pre-report information.
Within these last 7 months, in order for us to have a better, stronger, and safer Chicago, it really requires the full force of government. And as you've indicated, homicides are down, shootings are down. But yes, what we've experienced in the city of Chicago, cities all over the country are experiencing. And I've just released my full out community safety plan that not only gets at the root causes of violence in the city of Chicago, but we're making critical investments. Those investments look like what I presented in my last budget: $250 million to address homelessness, $100 million for violence prevention. We added $80 million more to our youth employment program, of which we hired 25,000 young people just this summer. That's a 20% increase from the previous year. I'm going to hire 4,000 additional young people this summer. We have stood up an entire office dedicated to reentry. So individuals who are returning to our communities who have been incarcerated because of failed policies, we'll have a welcoming space for them. I've added $500,000 for restoration and reparations to address, again, the cycle of violence, which looks like school closings.
Restoration and reparations. How many people heard about what Brandon Johnson is considering as far as quote unquote reparations? This is a trick bag that all of these Democrat politicians are starting to all do with a steady drumbeat. You guys remember Kathy Hochul just talked about quote unquote reparations? Reluctantly, she didn't want to do it. Now Brandon Johnson is sitting up here babbling something about reparations. What kind of reparations? Probably nothing like what has been established as what we consider would be legitimate reparations. This dude is just going to slap the reparations label on something and come up with some type of indiscriminate program where he's going to be throwing money at everybody except for black people and call that reparations, sign, seal, and deliver it. And nobody's going for that nonsense. I really do not understand these people and their just lack of situational awareness and their lack of ability to see that people are evolving. People are not falling for these trick bags anymore. You know what I'm saying? People are not just going for the Democrat nonsense. People are actually saying you need to put your money where your mouth is. You need to put them tangibles where your mouth is. And they're not doing that. when it comes time to actually put the tangibles on the table, they're not showing up with them. And if they don't show up with them tangibles on the table, there's nobody that needs to be showing up with any type of support for them. If you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down.
Closing of mental health facilities, of which I've invested in now. We're going to open up 2 mental health clinics that were closed from 2 previous administrations ago. And so in order for us to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago, it requires investments. And that's what this budget has done, a $16.77 billion budget without raising property taxes. And we're just getting started in the city of Chicago. Look, the last thing that I'll say on this, look, my wife and I, we're raising our 3 children on the west side of Chicago. It's a beautiful part of the city. We love it. But it also has been the side of the city of Chicago that has experienced gross disinvestment from school closings, from lack of transportation, from lack of investments. And so I wake up every single day in one of the most toughest parts of the city. And so there is no one in this city who thinks about public safety more than someone like me who was raised in a family on the west side of Chicago. So I'm very much committed to investments so that the better, stronger, safer Chicago that we're all hoping for, we can actually see the full fruit of our labor.
If you ask me, he needs to be worried about those angry city council people. You know what I'm saying? Those angry city council people gonna want to get him up out of there. You see, hold on real quick, y'all. All right, there we go. There we go. All right, so next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at this article here from the Denver Gazette. I told y'all that I would get it for you. We had some issues with it yesterday, but ta-dow, how you like me now? You know what I'm saying? We got it popping up here today. So we're going to talk about this. Denver mayor joins New York City and Chicago in calling for national immigration strategy. Now, before we get into this, my question for you guys is, what type of national immigration strategy do you all think that it is that they're calling for? Do you all think that they're calling to try to limit the amount of encounters at the southern border? Or do you all think that they just want to have the money given to them to make the migrants' integration into society easier and for them to get the negative publicity off of themselves? Which one do y'all think that it is? So now here it says the Democratic mayors of Denver, Chicago, and New York City on Wednesday blasted Texas Governor Greg Abbott for what they called a reckless and unsafe political strategy of transporting droves of immigrants to their communities, which they said threatens local economies. Now, that's interesting that they said that. Oh, okay, bet. Good look, Jesse. Appreciate you, bro. Make sure y'all throw some radiation emoji in the chat and some flames for Jesse. What do they mean it's going to threaten local economies? How so? That's interesting. When they make statements like that, I think they should have to expand on that. This is going to threaten local economies. How so? What do they mean threaten local economies? Threaten the local economy how? Somebody make it make sense. Denver Mayor Mike Johnson joined the 40-minute press conference with New York City Mayor Eric Adams and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson to call on the federal government to step up to the moment. Now, my question is, when they're saying that they want the federal government to step up, what do they think that the federal government is going to step up and do? What do they think that the federal government is going to step up and do? That's my question. What do they think that the federal government is going to step up and do? Are they thinking that the federal government is going to step up and throw them money? Or are they thinking that the federal government is going to step up and assist at the border to decrease border encounters? That's my question. And I'm going to put the Discord link in here into the chat real quick, because I don't think oh, okay, hold on real quick. You know what? I don't know if you're in the server, Jesse. Can you? I'm gonna drop the server link. Can you just put it into the server? Because for whatever reason, I didn't get a personal message, but it might be because I'm not signed in on my other account. Let me see. Hold on real quick. Let me see something. Let me see. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Oh, okay. I see it. Hold on. All right. I just posted a message and tagged you in it. Can you just drop it on there? Appreciate it, bro. Because I'm not signed in under my BLR account. For some reason, I'm having problems with that BLR account. I be having the worst luck with anything. My passwords always be getting messed with, and they be taking my accounts away. But I was using the Reacts podcast account. So let me see. Hold on, real quick. Oh, okay, cool. Bet. Good luck. I got it. Got it. All right, cool. Yeah. So we'll do that right after we do this article. That's what's up. That's definitely what's up. Hold on real quick. Let me just grab that. We're gonna grab this. We're gonna grab this. And we're gonna grab that. All right, cool. Let me just shut these down real quick, y'all. I apologize for the delays. If you guys can take a moment, smash that like button. Also, if you guys haven't hit the bell, please take a moment, hit the bell, and subscribe to the channel. And also, please share the stream to your social media, wherever you're watching from. All right. So next here, it says we cannot continue to do the federal government's job. New York City Mayor Eric Adams said during the video call. Honestly, they're not doing the federal government's job. The federal government's job is to make sure that people who are crossing the southern border are crossing the border legally with legitimate reasons to cross the border. And if they're not, then to enforce the law. Would you guys agree? That's the federal government's job. There's no way that these localities and these states can do that, especially these ones that aren't border states. So they're not doing the federal government's job. It's not the federal government's job to literally house and take care of every single person that comes through the southern border. That's not their job. Their job is to regulate the southern border, and the southern border is not being regulated. So even in this claim here, they're not doing the federal government's job. The mayors convened online on the same day that Secretary of State Tony Blinken met with Mexico President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador to discuss the surge of immigrants at the southern border. Tens of thousands of immigrants, mostly from South and Central America, have poured into these traditional gateway cities, which now include Denver. In the 12 months since 90 immigrants from South and Central America were dropped off downtown to wander Denver in the cold, Colorado's most populous city has welcomed 34,461 newcomers. The unprecedented surge of immigrants has cost Denver taxpayers more than $36 million, according to the city. $36 million. That's $36 million that the taxpayers of Denver will never see. Now, do you guys think that the people in Denver are happy about that? I have this feeling that the people of Denver are not happy about that at all. I don't think that they're happy about that at all. Despite state and federal grants, Denver taxpayers have shouldered most of that cost. Over the past year, these cities have seen multiple surges in new immigrant arrivals, but the mayors blamed the Republican governor of Texas, who has bused more than 11,800 immigrants to Chicago's most populous city since May. The numbers came from Abbott's office. Dubbed Operation Lone Star, Texas has transported nearly 70,000 immigrants to Chicago, Denver, and New York City over the past 16 months. We cannot do this alone, said Johnson, Chicago's mayor. We need more support from the federal government. Each mayor described local efforts to rein in what they described as Texas chaotic bus drops at all hours of the night by creating legal requirements that bus operators alert receiving cities in advance and drop immigrants at designated drops during working hours. Johnson said Abbott retaliated by flying immigrants to Chicago on private planes without a manifest that identifies passengers and cargo, which, if you ask me, they should have made that. If they wanted to actually make that ordinance effective, what they should have done was at least written the ordinance, any transport of the immigrants should have been made a punishable offense if they actually wanted to deter it, which I don't think that they actually wanted to do. Renee Easy, an Abbott spokesperson, called out the duplicity of the mayors. The sheer hypocrisy of these Democrat mayors knows no bounds, Easy said in an email to the Denver Gazette. They are now going to extreme lengths to avoid fulfilling their self-declared sanctuary city promises, yet they remain silent as President Biden transports migrants all around the country and oftentimes in the cover of the night. For years, Republicans have accused the Biden administration of organizing secret immigrant flights dubbed ghost flights. The Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights, a nonprofit that works with unaccompanied minors, has said the feds have done this for years because by law, the federal government is required to care for these children until they're reunited with a sponsor, parent, or relative. Easy added, instead of attacking Texas efforts to provide relief for our overwhelmed border communities, these Democrat mayors should call on their party leader to finally do his job and secure the border, something he continues to refuse to do. And honestly, these Democrat mayors are not asking they're not asking President Biden to do that. They're not asking President Biden to do that at all. All they're asking President Biden for is for more money. And money is not going to solve the situation. What needs to happen is those border encounters need to be decreased significantly. If those border encounters are not decreased significantly, everything is going to continue at the same level or higher than what we're experiencing now. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says Johnson, Denver's mayor, vaguely described a similar approach in his city, although it was not immediately clear when these restrictions on charter buses were implemented. Jordan Fuja, a Johnson spokesperson, did not immediately respond to a phone call seeking comment on Wednesday. As recently as 2 weeks ago, during this latest surge, a bus was seen dropping off at least 2 Venezuelan families 6 miles from Denver Human Services, which has been managing the humanitarian response for the city since lifting the emergency declarations. And last week, Denver officials welcomed what they called a ghost bus from Texas that dropped off immigrants in front of the state capitol. How many people knew about any of these drop-offs? If y'all knew about these drop-offs, give me a thumbs up. If y'all did not know about these drop-offs, give me a thumbs down. Democrat and Republican governors for months have exchanged jabs at each other for busing immigrants out of their states and into others. They playing musical migrants. Denver finds itself right now at ground zero in trying to resolve and respond to the migrant crisis, Johnston said. We have had at this point more migrant arrivals to our city than any city in America per capita. And that is not because there is a thoughtful or coordinated strategy to entry. It is because we are the first big city north of El Paso. El Paso, Texas, the nearest U.S. city at the Mexico border, is more than 600 miles from Denver. Officials have speculated that immigrants are drawn to Denver because of its relative proximity to the Mexico border, while others believe its status as a sanctuary city is the appeal. Broadly speaking, a sanctuary city refers to local policies that prohibit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. So, by nature, the sanctuary city status is a resistance to federal immigration policy. So that right there is one of the reasons why these sanctuary city mayors will fail every time when attempting to address this migrant crisis. What these people need to do is they need to drop these sanctuary city statuses and start cooperating with the federal government in order to manage this border crisis. And what it looks like is that they do not plan on doing that. Until they plan on doing that, we're going to continue to see what we're seeing. All three mayors said the humanitarian effort to feed, house, clothe, and educate these new arrivals had become a financial burden that threatens local resources, with possible cuts to services for immigrants or city budgets coming without federal intervention. And see, again, the federal intervention that these sanctuary cities want is money. It's not border regulation. Money's not going to solve the problem. Now, as much as these people like to try to throw in our faces that money, as far as reparations goes, is not going to solve the problem, reparations, money will solve the problem. They don't want that problem solved. When it comes to this, money actually will not solve the problem, because it's not only it's not only about resources that they don't have, but it's also about space. It's about resources, it's about space, and it's about sustainability. And the money will only give them the ability to purchase more resources, but they cannot expand the available space using money. They can't do that. They can't take the money and have the money translate into more square miles available. They cannot do that. And these are all of the things that we see running dry. New York City, for example, is under a hiring freeze, and department heads have been tasked with identifying 5% in cuts. Johnston identified 3 steps that he said the federal government must take to intervene: make dramatic increases in the number of work authorizations, additional funding to meet the crisis, and a coordinated entry plan. Again, all of these demands that they're talking about, none of these things right here, none of them address decreasing southern border encounters. The only thing that is going to stop or slow this crisis down is deterring southern border encounters. And as you can see, all of the demands that these Democrat mayors made, none of them address that. Now, here's my question for everybody watching. Of the things that we listed, make dramatic increases in the number of work authorizations, additional funding to meet the crisis, and a coordinated entry plan, what are those going to do to stop the amount of people entering the southern border? What are they going to do to stop that? That's my question for you guys. Local governments have been left scrambling to address the unfolding humanitarian crisis. Texas, for example, has instituted border barriers and made, quote unquote, illegally crossing the Texas-Mexico state a crime. And we're going to talk about this in more detail either later or in another stream. Biden abandoned his constitutional duty to secure the border, so Texas stepped up to respond, Abbott said on the social media platform X, where he posted a picture of border wall construction. Early in the crisis, Denver officials determined city taxpayers would pay to transport immigrants to the city of their choice, although city and state bureaucrats have not always alerted officials in other states prior to transporting immigrants out of Denver. So now Denver wants Texas to do what Denver itself was not doing. Make that make sense. Denver wants Texas to do what Denver didn't even have the courtesy of doing on its own. Somebody make that make sense. The mayors of New York City and Chicago earlier this year criticized Governor Jared Polis for also shuffling immigrants around, an accusation that has also been leveled against Republican governors such as Abbott, who bust a group of immigrants to a street near the Naval Observatory, which houses the vice president's official residence. City officials have purchased bus, plane, and train tickets for roughly half of the new arrivals. That gives a whole new meaning to planes, trains, and automobiles, doesn't it? You guys remember that old school movie with Steve Martin called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? Who remember that movie? That's what they putting the immigrants on now. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Minus Steve Martin. You know what I'm saying? So now, shout out to Jesse. Again, make sure you guys show Jesse some love for throwing this link into the Discord. We're going to look at all of these sanctuary city mayors ask for more help. And again, they're not asking for help with decreasing the encounters at the southern border. They're asking for help with more money.
And as caravans of migrants arrive at the southern border by the thousands, Texas Governor Greg Abbott is sending asylum seekers by bus and plane north to cities like Chicago, New York City, and Denver. Our next guest is one of the Democratic mayors who formed a coalition to demand federal help to address the growing crisis. Denver Mayor Micah Johnston joins me now to discuss things further. Mayor, good to see you, and thanks a lot for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
All right, so you've called it Denver ground zero for the migrant crisis. How is Denver handling the flow of asylum seekers, and what are you faced with?
Yeah, right now, Denver is ground zero because we are the single largest recipient of migrants per capita of any city in America. Actually, more than twice as many migrants are coming to Denver as any other city. And that is, I think, a reason why the system currently isn't working. That's simply because we're the first big city north of El Paso. And so you put folks on a bus from El Paso, they go straight north on I-25, they end up in Denver. The good news is we know this is a solvable problem. We know how to solve the problem, but we know that what's currently happening is not working. The images you saw, what happens currently is about 10.
Now, we know how to solve the problem, right? But the interesting thing about it is that they're not doing or asking for any of the things that we have come to the conclusion that would make viable solutions. Again, they're simply asking for work permits and for money. Now, the thing is that they already had work permits and they already had money, and already having the work permits and already having money, as we can see, has not slowed or stopped the crisis. The only thing that's going to slow or stop the crisis is decreasing the southern border encounters and enforcing the law. And they're not interested in doing that. They're calling that xenophobic. Okie dokie. Shout out to my man, AB Promotions. Good to see you, bro. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 27 people watching. If everybody could take a moment, smash that like button. Also, if you guys have not hit the bell, please hit the bell. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do that. And share the stream to your social media. We got 28 likes. If we could get to 35, that would be great.
10,000 people or so are contacted a day. They're apprehended. They're then released into the country, many of them on asylum claims. But when they arrive to Denver, it might take 3 or 4 years till that asylum case can get heard. And in the meantime, they don't have the ability to work. They don't have federal resources. And we don't have a plan for coordinated entry of these asylum seekers across the country. And that's really what we want the federal government to do, because we know there is a way to solve this. We did it with asylees from Afghanistan.
There already is a coordinated entry. Listen. There is already a coordinated entry system. It's called the immigration process. The problem is that these people here are not compliant with that process, and that the government is laxed and allows them to be non-compliant without consequence. That's what we're dealing with. Like there already is a coordination process. It's called the immigration process. They have a whole United States division of the government called U.S. Immigration and Customs Services. It's all about processing immigration. They already have all of this stuff set up. It's just that it's not enforced. And the sanctuary cities are called sanctuary cities because of their negligence in enforcing these things. And their negligence in enforcing these things are what is contributing to the situation that we have right now.
The asylees from Ukraine, the country can respond in a coordinated way. And we want to see America rise to this moment and do that here as well.
And Mayor, you have been very critical of Texas Governor Greg Abbott for sending migrants to cities, including yours, as we learn about the impact that this crisis has had on your city. What do you think Governor Abbott should be doing differently since he's the one facing the border crisis on the front lines?
Yeah, we'd like to work together with Governor Abbott. I reached out to him. We'll partner with other cities and states. We think there should be a coordinated national response for how to provide services. When we brought in 50,000 refugees from Ukraine just because they landed at JFK Airport in New York, the mayor of New York did not decide where all those Ukrainian refugees went. We had a coordinated federal plan that brought dollars with them, brought work authorization with them, and coordinated their entry in places.
Now, that's interesting, right? Here's a question for everybody. How many people knew that they had a coordinated plan for Ukrainian refugees? If you guys were aware of that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys were not aware of that, give me a thumbs down.
This is where we knew they could be successful. We know we can do that now. And we think we're calling on the federal government to really take action to do that, because we know it can be solved. It can be solved effectively. Of the more than 35,000 migrants that have arrived here in Denver, more than 99% of them we've successfully gotten into housing, into work, and successfully transitioned. But it doesn't make sense for more than 200,000 migrants in the city to just be in the country to be arriving in just 3 American cities. And that's what's happening right now.
And during a virtual meeting briefing with New York Mayor Eric Adams and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, you said there are 3 areas that the federal government should act on. The first is work authorization. The second is federal support to support city budgets. And the third is a coordinated entry plan. Why are these 3 points a priority, especially for you?
I mean, the top priority really, DeMarco, is work authorization. What I find every day I talk to migrants in the city, they'll say,
work authorizations. Listen, we've been talking about these situations forever. It's been a long time, right? And shout out to BLR. Gotta shout myself out. I was one of the first people talking about this migrant situation before the undocumented bros. On BLR 1 and on BLR 2, there are immigration playlists which have videos from 2 years ago, right? Now, the reason why I bring that up is because they have already used work permits as a method to try to deal with this. Do you guys remember when they did the parole sponsorships? If you guys remember the parole sponsorships, give me a thumbs up. If you guys don't, then give me a thumbs down. The parole sponsorships were for Venezuelans. And they changed the definition of parole to make it a wider spanning definition to allow more Venezuelans to be eligible for what? The TPO, the Temporary Protection Order. You guys remember that? Now, these were the solutions that they were using early on. Clearly, they haven't worked. And the reason why is because giving people jobs is not stopping the influx of migrants. It's the influx of migrants that's the actual problem. It's a problem of volume versus capacity. The volume of migrants coming in is higher than the capacity that we are able to hold. This is a very simple, all of this can be broken down into very simple math equations using algebra or geometry, whichever one you choose. And they're acting like they don't understand. Shout out to Black Spider, shout out to Black Free Thinker, shout out to Jacoby, and shout out to Cameron. Good to see y'all.
I only want one thing, Mr. Mayor. I just want a job. I'll also get calls every day from employers who say, we have open jobs. We'd love to hire those people. Can we please hire them? Right now, we have folks who want to work and employers who want to hire them, and a federal government standing in the way that says that they can't. If we can get those folks expedited work authorization, they can support themselves, which is what they want to do most. And also, once we have that work authorization, then it's much easier for us to partner with other cities and states to say, okay, can Toledo take 500 people? Can Colorado Springs take 200? Can Cheyenne take 100? If folks arrive at the capacity to work, then we can coordinate their entry and coordinate their supports. Again, that's what we've done with other refugees, and it's been very effective. Even as far back in our own country when we had Hurricane Katrina, 50, 100,000 New Orleanians were transitioned out to cities around the country. We supported them very successfully because we did it together with a coordinated plan. We think the country should do that here as well.
And Mayor, we just heard you touch on some numbers in Trevor Alt's piece. You've also said that without federal help, a city service.
How can you have the country already has a coordinated plan? Sanctuary cities are not compliant with the established plan. This is the reality that we have to understand, because these people are not operating within reality. there are already established guidelines and laws when it comes to border entry, right? There's already established laws and guidelines when it comes to immigration. There's already established standards and definitions and qualifications of when it comes to asylum seeking. Sanctuary cities, by definition, are not compliant with federal regulations. So if this guy, what he's saying, if they actually want to have quote unquote coordination, very simple. Drop the sanctuary city status and comply with what the United States government has already issued as the standards of migration, asylum, and immigration. Very simple. It's people in the sanctuary cities that are holding this stuff up. Would you guys agree? If you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. This is very simple stuff. These sanctuary cities are the ones that's making it difficult for themselves.
This would be impacted. What specific city services are you referring to? And do you already know where you would make the cuts?
We don't. We're having that hard conversation with our departments and our city right now. We'd like to avoid that problem. We think if the federal government can take action on the supplemental budget that President Biden has proposed, that would be $14 billion that could help meet this need. And so we want to avoid having to make those hard trade-offs, and we want the federal government to take action. If they don't, we'll be looking at a $160 million impact. That's 10% of our entire budget. So if you imagine cutting all of your city agencies by 10%, that would be historic cuts, larger than we've seen even in the recession times of the 2009 and 2010 cycle.
And a final question for you. Your thoughts on how the Biden administration is handling this crisis?
I think they've pushed on the right issues, and that supplemental include the very problems we're having. We need more capacity to adjudicate these asylum claims faster. It can't take 4 years to figure out if someone needs asylum or not. We should do that in 30 days. They push for that. We need more resources for the cities. They push for that too. We asked Secretary Mayorkas to expand work authorization. He did critically, which allowed Venezuelans who arrived before July 31st to get work authorization.
Why aren't they trying to help? Why are they not delivering the message to the migrants that by continuing to be non-compliant with U.S. border entry law, you are actually slowing up the process and harming other migrants? Why aren't they making an effort to explain that?
That helped us a lot in September and October. Now all the 4,000 people in our shelter tonight, none of them have arrived before July 31st. They're not eligible. So they've pushed in the right direction. We need Congress to help by expanding that work authorization, approving those federal dollars, and helping us create a plan for coordinated entry of migrants. And we think that we can show cities can succeed with those supports.
All right, Denver Mayor Mike Johnson, thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it.
So there's that. And again, shout out to Jesse for providing that clip. Definitely appreciate it. So we're going to listen to some more of what these Democrat mayors are saying, because honestly, if you ask me, these Democrat mayors, they're living in a fantasy world, and what they want is not consistent with reality. It's not consistent with reality.
The White House saying it is working with Mexico to stem the flow of migrants at the southern border amid recent criticism from the president's own party. The Democratic mayors of New York City, Chicago, and Denver all say yesterday that they're overwhelmed with the amount of people arriving in their cities. This comes as hundreds of migrants, mostly from—
Now, again, another thing that I want you guys to pay very close attention to is I want people to pay attention to the media bias. Again, Texas and Arizona and other border states have been dealing with this situation for years. And shout out to Skeptical Car, who just joined the Discord, and anybody else who wants to never miss a notification. Make sure you guys join Discord, or make sure that you guys follow my Twitter account. All right. But this was never an issue that was in the forefront in the mainstream media until it started affecting Democrat cities. Do you guys notice that? This has been going on in Texas and Arizona forever. Oh, okay. That was good. That was good. Shout out to Cameron. Make sure y'all show Cameron some love. Throw some radiation emoji in the chat and some flames for Cameron for joining the Discord. And also, if you guys are not part of the Discord, take a moment to hit that link that's pinned in the comment section. It'll take you right into the Discord. You will never miss a notification for content again.
The White House saying it is working with Mexico to stem the flow of migrants at the southern border amid recent criticism from the president's own party. The Democratic mayors of New York City, Chicago, and Denver all say yesterday that they're overwhelmed with the amount of people arriving in their cities. This comes as hundreds of migrants, mostly from Latin America and the Caribbean, now head to the U.S.-Mexico border. Let's bring in our CBS News correspondent, Skylar Henry, who's following this president in St. Croix with more on this. Skylar, how is the White House responding to these new concerns?
Hey, Chanel, good to be with you. Well, the White House has said that the president remains committed to addressing this problem, referring back to a one-stop shop work authorization and temporary protected status clinic, if you will, that would provide non-citizens to allow work permits and decompress some of the shelter programs that may be happening in those cities in and of itself. We know that the White House says that they remain in regular contact with these cities that may be experiencing this growing number of migrants that may be coming via bus or other means. They say that they are trying to work with them around the clock. But the Biden administration has also said that they are asking Congress to pass additional funding to try to help out at the U.S.-Mexico border as well, to the tune of some $14 billion. And I think that ultimately is where the president wants to see some stuff done. We know, as you pointed out, there was that meeting yesterday between U.S. and Mexican officials talking about things that could be done not only on the migration and security front, but also creating some economic framework as well to try to have some foundation in place, if you will, as they continue to move forward. We know that there will be a small working group meeting again at the end of next month that will talk about some of the framework that has been put.
That's a great question. Shout out to Jacoby. Jacoby says, so I have a question. Who should be responsible if we have a terrorist attack because of it? I think everybody, the United States government, the Mexican government, and the government of the places where these people are leaving from. I think that all of these people should be responsible if there's a terrorist attack and the terrorist attack is traced back to some undocumented bros. Everybody responsible, if you ask me. Everybody except for those of us who are citizens who are, encouraging that the law be followed and people proceed with caution with this kind of stuff.
Together, we know that the Mexican president has come out to say that some important issues and agreements have been reached, but nothing to preview just yet. But that's how the White House is responding now. We'll see ultimately what happens when the two sides meet again next month.
Okay, you talked about that meeting yesterday, really critical to this. What does the White House want Congress to do in the new year about this immigration problem?
Get that money passed, right? I think that ultimately is part of a bigger package, a bigger supplemental aid package that would get billions of dollars to help in the war efforts in both Israel and Ukraine in their respective wars. But they also want to make sure that that money gets down to the border as well. Republicans have said that they want to ultimately get Democrats to sweeten the pot, meaning that they want less asylum restrictions. They also want more detentions and more deportations to try to stem the flow of migrants. That
they want detentions and deportations for people who are crossing illegally. It's amazing how the mainstream media tries to frame this like they're talking about for everybody. They're talking about the people who are abusing and weakening the immigration system. You know what I'm saying? And big facts. Shout out to Black Spider. All of that talking and doing nothing. Facts. The wheels are spinning, but the car ain't going nowhere.
That have happened here. We know that both sides appear to be making significant progress before the holiday break, but ultimately, simply there was not enough time before lawmakers went.
Now, do you guys see this? Look at this graph right here. Southern border encounters. Now, let me ask y'all this. Do you all feel that there is a proportional relationship to the amount of southern border encounters with the amount of illegal immigrants that cross the border? If you guys feel that there is, give me a thumbs up. If you guys feel that there isn't, give me a thumbs down. Now, if these numbers, right, if the numbers of southern border encounters is positively correlated with the amount of illegal entry, then that would mean that the number of illegal entries can be decreased if the total amount of border encounters are increased. So the only target that should be being looked at right now from a mathematical point of view, if we're looking at this only in terms of numbers, is to decrease the amount of encounters. Because if you decrease the amount of encounters, by default, with the positive correlation, you're going to decrease illegal entry. Notice how that is not what's being looked at. This is very simple. This is very simple. This literally is statistics 101. Positive, negative correlations. You know what I'm saying? Proportions. What is proportions? This is in fraction class.
On their recess, and so we'll see what happens when they get back into town. Once they get back from their break, we know that this is absolutely something that's on their to-do list, again, to try to get as much aid out as possible. We know that border agents say that they are strained. They want.
Shout out to Jacoby. Jacoby's got another question. Second question: should the USCIS be sued for allowing illegal immigration to happen while they don't pay anything? I think that's a little bit more of a complicated issue. Now, here's the reason why I say that it's a little bit more of a complicated issue. I'm not caping for USCIS. However, one of the big, okay, so now here's the thing. USCIS should be sued for allowing illegal immigration to happen when it comes to their failures at the border. Now, as far as the sanctuary cities go, I think that the sanctuary cities should be sued for not being compliant with USCIS guidelines. I think that USCIS is doing a poor job, but they're doing a even worse job because of sanctuary city non-compliance. So USCIS needs to be held accountable for the poor job that they're already doing, but they shouldn't be held accountable for the sanctuary city non-compliance. That's a separate issue that the sanctuary cities themselves should be held accountable for. So I do believe that the USCIS should be sued, but I think that the USCIS lawsuit should be kind of structured, and it should be very detailed to specify exactly what USCIS is being sued for as far as their failures. And one of those specifics, in my opinion, would be the specifics of being laxed at the border and not providing enough funding for the Border Patrol to be able to enforce the borders properly according to the law. You know what I'm saying? Now, again, the sanctuary city issue, I believe that the sanctuary city issue inflates the existing incompetence, but I believe that that's a separate issue. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, I would have to agree with you on that, Jacoby. I think that it would just be kind of complicated, but I definitely think that there is a case for it. Absolutely.
Not only more agents, but more resources to the tune of some 1,300.
Shout out to Ricky 12. What's good with it, bro?
Over the past couple of weeks, they've closed off certain access points via rail and road to try to stem this problem. But they say that they need more money. They need more resources in order to deal with it as best they can.
Okay, Skylar Henry, thanks so much.
Now, with all these humanitarian companies that are helping these migrant caravans and stuff like that, my question for you guys is, how much effort do you all think that these humanitarian companies, how much effort are they putting toward these photo ops? These are definitely photo ops. They got people with the clean clothes on, their hair is done, everybody's nice and crisp, nice wholesome family pictures with the moms pleasantly pushing the strollers. Like, come on. If you listen, I've been in, according to these people, they've been crossing the Darien Gap and going through all of this monstrous terrain to try to get to the United States. I've been more stressed out than that just walking to the mailbox, and I don't look happy when I come back. So you mean to tell me you've walked up an entire hemisphere of the country and you're all cleanly pressed and you look like that? Like, come on, man. It just doesn't make any sense.
Now to the immigration crisis. Border crossings are on track to break records in December. And now a coalition of Democratic mayors are demanding federal help as busloads of migrants arrive on their doorsteps. ABC's Trevor Ault joins us now with more. Trevor, good morning.
Good morning. So this is the Port Authority in Manhattan. This is where these buses are.
See, and shout out to Jesse. Jesse says exactly. They didn't want to elect me, though, because I was against the sanctuary cities. And now they're feeling it. See, now they're feeling it. But see, the problem with Colorado is Colorado they've got those type of people. you either got the people that are extremely racist on the conservative side, or you got the people that are extreme know-it-all narcissist racist on the liberal side, and you don't really have anything in between out there. So you got those liberals that think that they know everything, that just aren't going to acknowledge anything that you're saying because they think that you're not as good as them because they're white and they have to save everything. And then you got the Lauren Boeberts out there who are just, you know what I'm saying, Confederates. And there's not really anything in between. Colorado is the place where you got folks calling the police on Elijah McClain for wearing a hoodie, getting him deleted. So that's Colorado in a nutshell. You know what I'm saying? And then Colorado is also the place where you got the dirty cops out there. They deleting white people out there in Colorado. Them dirty cops. They deleting white people out there in Colorado. Zachary Gifford. What's the other dude's name that got deleted at his school? So that's what you got in Colorado.
Now required to drop off the migrants at specific times with specific notice. But the mayor here and several other leaders of really prominent cities say they need substantial federal help as this problem keeps growing.
December's now on track to have the highest number of Border Patrol apprehensions ever, according to Customs and Border Protection data. The agency reporting on average nearly 10,000 apprehensions a day over the last week. And this morning, a trio of mayors from New York City, Chicago, and Denver are all calling for federal support responding to the national immigration crisis, accusing Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott of cruel and inhumane politics busing migrants across the country.
We're looking at about $160 million of potential costs going into next year's budget. That's almost 10% of our entire city budget.
New York City's mayor issuing an executive order requiring advance notice for buses dropping off migrants in the city, now only allowing their arrival weekday mornings between 8:30 and noon. This as officials Wednesday shuttled hundreds of people to overcrowded shelters throughout the city.
To be clear, this is not stopping people from coming, but about ensuring the safety of migrants and making sure they can arrive in a coordinated and orderly way.
The mayor's office says more than 7,000 asylum seekers have arrived in New York City in just the last 2 weeks. Earlier this week, hundreds of asylum seekers were flown to the Northeast, forced to stop in Philadelphia due to bad weather. On Wednesday, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken visiting Mexico, meeting with the president there to discuss the historic levels of migration. A source familiar with the talk says the U.S. is hoping to find ways to convince Mexico to do more, to ramp up immigration enforcement on its side of the border, and discuss incentives to encourage people to stay in Mexico rather than cross into the U.S. The talks come as another large caravan of thousands of people slowly advances north through Mexico, headed toward the southern border. The leaders of the group, reportedly made up of people fleeing Central America, are carrying banners which read, "Exodus from poverty."
And Republicans in Congress are trying to require a strengthened border security package be tied to any further funding for Ukraine. We do know Senate negotiators met on Capitol Hill on Wednesday trying to hammer out a deal. Eva.
Trevor Altworth here. Thank you, Trevor.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
There's that. All right. Oop, hold on real quick. All right. Yeah. So there's that. So next, we're going to talk about New York City and their laws that they put in place to attempt to slow the buses. Now, see what's interesting about this, right, is that they understand that slowing the buses will decrease the flow of migrants coming into New York City, which is literally the same mathematical principle as decreasing the amount of southern border encounters to decrease the amount of illegal border crossings. But they're not advocating for that. So we got to ask the question why it is that they're not advocating for that.
Hi, Lisa Zornberg, Chief Counsel of the Mayor and City Hall. Can you spell your name? Camille, Joseph, Joseph, Varlack, V as in Victory, Arlack. Lisa, the normal way, Zornberg, Z like zebra, ORN like Nancy, BERG.
Make a statement. Okay, great.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Essentially, we've been talking about this, I think, at Off Topics for the past couple of weeks. As everyone is clear on, there is a surge that is happening. There are unprecedented numbers at the border, and we have seen certainly an uptick in New York City over the past couple of weeks, and we continue to work very carefully to manage that. The executive order that was released yesterday is an effort for us to once again try to control the time and the place and the manner in which asylum seekers or migrants are dropped off in New York City, which will enable us to better coordinate their care. So we are really excited to have that out there. But again, we continue to need help. As we've said previously, we are incredibly grateful for the assistance that we've gotten from our federal and state partners, but 160,000 people have come into our city over the course of the last year and a half, and we continue to need additional assistance, as do all of the other cities that are dealing with this national crisis across the country.
How quickly does the city plan to escalate violations of this new policy? Meaning, let's say tomorrow a bus drops without notice at 2 p.m. Is that bus immediately going to be taken away by the city?
Why don't I address that? The local emergency order that Mayor Adams issued yesterday has the force of law, and under state law, knowing violation of the emergency order is a criminal misdemeanor. It's no different than enforcement as to any other law going forward. If everyone's expected to comply with the order, and if they don't, the NYPD is charged with enforcement of the order. And
So again, I want you guys to pay close attention to this. Shout out to Win Loser Rug. What's good with it, bro? Democrat logic. These people who are operating legitimate businesses here in the United States, they can be punished for doing their business. But it's okay for these sanctuary cities to not comply with the federal government when it comes to immigration enforcement. So now I think that in response to these laws that these Democrat cities have come with, if the federal government was actually about anything, the federal government needs to say, well, if you don't comply with immigration policy, then you're going to get fined. But the problem is that we got a sanctuary government. You know what I'm saying? We got Joe Sanctuary Biden as the president. So that's not going to happen.
we were very clear yesterday that there is a short grace period while companies and bus operators are notified and people have a chance to examine and understand what their obligations are. Once that grace period of 32 hours ends, we expect full compliance. In terms of enforcement, again, it's like any other law. In the course of all sorts of enforcement actions, the NYPD has a variety of tools at their disposal, including seizure of evidence, impounding of evidence, but this is going to be treated like any other law, and those who knowingly violate it do so at their peril.
And I've asked this question before, and I'm gonna keep on asking this question. Why is it that most people that are talking about the migrant crisis are only talking about Chicago and New York? This stuff is going on all over the place. You know what I'm saying? It's going on in more places here in the United States than just Chicago and New York. And you don't really hear too many people talking about it in terms of the other cities. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, because if you ask me, all of the areas deserve to get covered. I think that the word should get out about where this is being affected at in every area, because the people in New York who are upset about this and the people in Chicago who are upset about it, when they're isolated like that, it makes it seem like their anger and their frustration is not legitimate. But when you see how this migrant crisis is affecting other places in the United States, it begins to give it a little bit more legitimacy. You know what I'm saying? And real quick, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 24 people watching and we got 37 likes. If everybody can bang on that like button and get us to 40, that would be great.
Can you step us through the procedure?
I want to get to everyone and then we'll come back to the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a little bit more, just what kind of spark this and what next year is supposed to look like in terms of getting this all in force.
Yeah, so, we have been wrestling with all of these issues, as we've said, for over the course of the last year and a half. And for us to be sort of in the middle of winter and seeing that there is a surge that quite frankly was broadcasted by Governor Abbott and his team on social media, that he just underscores what we already know, which is as a political ploy, he's continuing to send people here.
When are people going to start holding the migrants accountable for putting themselves into these situations of attempting to come through the United States during the worst times that there possibly could be, and going to cities like New York where they know that it's freezing at this time of year? Like, that it's freezing at this time. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So they're at this part where they're answering questions, and honestly, I think we're pretty aware of the of the busing issue. Shout out to Deformed Pretty Boy. Make sure you guys throw him some radiation emoji in the chat and some flames in the chat. He brought this up yesterday and posted some links. He posted some links in the chat, and we're going to talk about this. Healthcare is free 99 in California for undocumented bros. When is the last time y'all had anything that was free 99? It's been a long time for me. It's been a long time for me. I haven't had anything that's free 99 in a hot minute. But healthcare is free 99. You know what I'm saying? California becomes the first state to offer health insurance to all eligible undocumented adults. You can go get your checkup. You know what I'm saying? You can go get your blood pressure taken. You can go get you a physical for free. Not only do we have to pay for health insurance, not only do we have to pay for a copay, and not only if we switched insurance companies do we have to pay for pre-existing conditions, but we also get to pay our tax dollars to get them a free bill of care. Man, they shout out to them. Man, over on the Reacts channel, shout out to the Reacts. Shout out to the podcast goats. You know what I'm saying? We call ourselves grifting over there. But the undocumented grift is the real grift. Oh, man. The undocumented grift is real. You know what I'm saying? California becomes the first state to offer health insurance to all eligible undocumented adults. The health insurance expansion was decades in the making for immigrant advocates. All right. So this article right here came out. As you guys can see, this is fairly new. December 28th of 2023. So this right here is hot off the press. Perla Lopez hands a stack of papers to Baudillo, a 44-year-old undocumented immigrant and day laborer. So now you know this dude is undocumented, and you know he's lying, because anybody that knows Latino people know that Latino people got a first name, a middle name, and a hyphenated last name. This dude is like Wolverine. He only got one name. His name is Baudillo. Okay. A 44-year-old undocumented immigrant and day laborer. She has just helped him apply for Medi-Cal at the Benefits Center at St. John Community Health in South Los Angeles. Now, Medi-Cal, that sounds like Buckeye. Here in Ohio, we got Buckeye, right? That's the Ohio Medicaid. Medi-Cal sound like some type of Medicaid for in California, or some type of Medicare for California. Medicaid is free, subsidized, government-sponsored health insurance that, for the most part, pays for everything. And, of course, it's free, you know, based on income requirements and all that. You know what I'm saying? If you see anything you don't understand from the country, come back here, Lopez tells Baudillo in Spanish. The application takes less than 20 minutes. The paperwork, though brief, marks a major milestone in California's decade-long expansion of healthcare for undocumented immigrants. As expensive as California is for U.S. citizens, why aren't they expanding healthcare for citizens? When is there going to be healthcare expansion for citizens? Beginning January 1st, for the first time, undocumented immigrants of all ages will qualify for Medi-Cal, the state's health insurance program for extremely low-income people. It makes California the only state to fund comprehensive health care for undocumented migrants. Man, so this Listen, Linda. Listen, Linda. This is insane. I guess there should be no expectation for return on your tax dollars if you're a United States citizen. Just expect your tax dollars to go towards something else or somebody else. Like, somebody make that make sense. Baudillo, who was denied coverage before and asked that his last name not be published to protect him from immigration authorities. He's undocumented. He ain't got no you. What do you mean? You got the ultimate protection. You don't have no documents. What are you talking about? Will join more than 700,000 undocumented immigrants between the ages of 26 and 49 who will become eligible for Medi-Cal as part of the state's final expansion of the program, the realization of long-awaited dream for Californians without legal status. What about those Californians that do have legal status? Now, what's the name of that place? The American Cholo radio station. The American Cholo radio station that has such a big issue with reparations that a dime of which hasn't gotten paid out. I wonder how they feel about this, which is actually getting paid out. I'm so tired of people having issues with people having conversations about shit that we haven't even gotten. But this stuff, the check is already signed and nobody's saying anything about it. This right here is proof of literally everything that I'll be talking about. Literally everything that I'll be talking about. This is the culmination of literally decades of work, and it's huge, said Sarah Dar, policy director for the California Immigrant Policy Center. It's huge because all the work and effort and advocacy that went into making this possible. And it's also huge because of the impact that it's going to have. Governor Gavin Newsom and the state's Democratic-led legislator have committed more than $4 billion to the Medi-Cal expansion annually. $4 billion. Newsom's 20. Now, what kind of budget was done? Or what kind of study was done about this? Why does the United States owe undocumented people on the West Coast free health care? These undocumented people from the West Coast will be the first people to come to the United States, being as anti-black as possible, and the United States hasn't even done anything to them. They will literally sit there and try to justify all of this free health care that they're getting when the United States has done nothing but open the doors for them. And the people that the United States has actually done things to for centuries and built itself off of, everybody has a problem with us just even talking about the stuff. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Governor Gavin Newsom said the state's Democratic-led legislator have committed more than $4 billion to the Medi-Cal expansion annually. Newsom's 2022 budget made the latest expansion possible, and though the state is now headed into a $68 billion deficit, advocates say the positive impact Medi-Cal will have on individual health is priceless. The change resonates deeply with Lopez, who herself is undocumented. Wait a minute. Lopez, who is undocumented. Hold on real quick. Who is Lopez? The lady that work at the lady that work at Job and Family Services is undocumented. Perla Lopez. Perla Lopez hands a stack of papers to Baudillo. Now later on down here, they talking about she undocumented. The change resonates deeply with Lopez, who herself is undocumented. Man, you cannot make this up, man. The lady that they started the story out with, helping old boy fill out the papers, she undocumented too. Somebody make it make sense. Man, let me see. Last year when the state expanded, I'm about to look at this real quick. Let's see. Hold on real quick, y'all. Give me 1 second. Wow. Yeah, we got to do a whole, we got to do, man, this is an undocumented value chain. Man, we got to do a whole stream on all of this California healthcare stuff. Again, shout out to Deformed Pretty Boy. Let me see something here. Man, this is wild. Hold on real quick. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys haven't smashed the like button, please take a moment to smash that like button. Also, if you guys haven't hit the bell, please take a moment and hit that bell. Yeah, that's wild, man. See, because the thing is like, when you start talking about this kind of stuff right here, they'll start saying that you're making this kind of stuff up. You're being xenophobic and all of this. But this is not xenophobia. You guys can see this is actually coming from legit news sources. I'm gonna show y'all the thing from the office of Gavin Newsom himself. This right here was published on July 27th of 2021. So now here it says last year when the state expanded Medi-Cal to older immigrants over 50, Lopez's mother was finally able to get medication and blood testing equipment for her diabetes. This year, they try to make it, let me shut up. This year, surrounded by tinsel and other Christmas decorations in the brightly lit office, Lopez is happy she gets to deliver good news to undocumented patients. It really touches me, says Lopez, who is eligible to work through Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. It's a stressor we take away from them. For people with health issues, Medi-Cal really makes a difference. Let me ask you guys this. If the United States is going to do so much for non-taxpayers, I think that the United States should be 100% full of non-taxpayers, and taxpayers should pay taxes to places that will actually reinvest the tax money back onto them. You know what I'm saying? The clinic where Lopez works estimates about 13,000 of its patients will become eligible for Medi-Cal in the new year. Now, mind you, they're all part of the largest group in California's ambitious plan to close the insurance gap. What insurance gap? What California insurance gap are they talking about? Los Angeles County alone accounts for roughly half of the enrollees who are expected to qualify for Medi-Cal. It's an exciting moment for our patients as well as for us, said Annie Erga, benefits counselor coordinator at St. John's Community Health. They're ready. Many of them are in need or waiting for specialist visits. California's health insurance expansion. The final expansion comes 9 years after then Governor Jerry Brown signed the law making undocumented children eligible for state insurance in 2015, and is due to the efforts of advocates tracking to the Capitol to plead their case. When we talk to people who are impacted by this, the difference it makes in their lives is something that truly numbers and words cannot even describe. Dar with the California Immigrant Policy Center said, in many cases, people have lived for decades without any kind of health care whatsoever. So have citizens. There's many citizens who have lived without health care because it's so expensive. Do they care about that? You know what I'm saying? Does that matter? Full Scope Medi-Cal, which offers access to primary and preventative care, specialists, pharmaceuticals, and other wraparound services, will change lives, Dar said. California does not share immigration information with federal authorities, and enrolling in Medi-Cal will not threaten chances to pursue legal residency, something known as public charge rule. So again, this right here is an example of California not being compliant with U.S. immigration law. They're literally saying it right here. We're not going to comply with this. We're not going to turn over information. They got the no snitching policy for undocumented bros. Medi-Cal expansion aids 1.8 million undocumented immigrants. Now, here goes my question. How much do y'all think that this is going to cost in taxpayer dollars? Let me know some figures. What you guys think? How much this is going to cost in taxpayer dollars? This is ridiculous. Since 2016, California has incrementally expanded Medi-Cal to undocumented immigrants. How many people were aware of that? If you were aware of that, give me a thumbs up. If you were not aware of that, give me a thumbs down. This has been going on since 2016 in California. Since 2016, California has incrementally expanded Medi-Cal to undocumented immigrants. The last and final expansion on January 1st of 2024 for adults ages 26 to 49 is projected to have the largest number of enrollees. Man, it's wait. The California Immigrant Policy Center, along with consumer advocacy group Health Access California, have been the leading force in the campaign to eliminate citizenship requirements for Medi-Cal. What? Let me shut up. Citizens got all kind of requirements to be eligible for Medi-Cal. People that come into the country illegally without documentation have no requirements. Yeah, I gotta agree. If you guys agree with Jesse, give me a thumbs up. If y'all disagree, give me a thumbs down. All 560 plus sanctuary cities deserve coverage of the migrant situation. I agree 100%. And I do not discriminate with the migrant coverage on BLR 1 and 2. And probably in February, I'll start streaming on BLR 3. On all of those, I try to hit the migrant situation with undocumented bros. And we set up this channel here undocumented specifically for all this. And we still can't get it all in. We still can't get it all in. They got too much stuff popping off. The work was not easy, even in left-leaning California. Many moderate Democrats voted against the legislation or refrained from weighing in on the debate in the early days, Dar said. But slowly, public opinion and political will shifted. Now, here's my question. How is it that you all think that those things happened? How did public opinion and political will change? How'd that happen? It didn't just happen out of nowhere. And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, shout out to everybody that's watching. We got 26 people watching and we got 38 likes. If everybody could take a moment, smash that like button and get us to 45, that'd be great. About 66% of California adults supported health coverage for undocumented immigrants in March of 2021. So I want you guys to understand this. In California, 66% of Californian adults supported health coverage for undocumented migrants for no reason. The United States has done absolutely nothing to these people. But the people that the United States has done absolutely everything to, they do not support reparations for. That's liberal California. That's liberal Karen Bass, Nuri Martinez, California. That's we don't understand racism, California. You know what I'm saying? Up from 54%. So they've always had more than half the support, according to a survey by the Public Policy Institute of California. Former Republican President Donald Trump lambasted California's expansion for young adults in 2020 and claimed California and other states would bankrupt our nation by providing free taxpayer-funded health care to millions of illegal aliens. Ain't that what ain't that what Eric Adams, Brandon Johnson, and old boy from Denver are saying? I just said, I'm gonna ask y'all this. We're gonna take a quick public opinion survey in here. Former Republican President Donald Trump lambasted California's expansion for young adults in 2020 and claimed California and other states would, quote unquote, bankrupt our nation by providing free taxpayer-funded health care to millions of illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. Here go my question. Was he right? If Trump was right, then give me a thumbs up. If Trump was wrong, then give me a thumbs down. Elected California Republicans, though less harsh in their condemnation of the state's immigration policies in recent years, have accused Newsom of overloading the state's budget and Medi-Cal system. Now, do you guys think that they've that he's overloaded it? If you guys think that Gavin Newsom has overloaded the California budget, then give me a thumbs up in the comment section. If you guys don't think that he has, then give me a thumbs down. Yeah, this is a lot of wild and extremely extra stuff. This is a lot of wild and extremely extra stuff. Medi-Cal is already strained by serving 14.6 million Californians, more than a third of the state's population. Adding 764,000 more individuals to the system will certainly exacerbate current provider access problems, the Senate Republican caucus said in a January 2022 budget analysis. Newsom, for his part, has played a critical role in propelling the movement forward. So now, again, Newsom can propel this movement forward, but Newsom is very silent on reparations. People should really pay very close attention to that and hold him accountable for that. Governor Gavin Newsom is all about being the savior and the hero when it comes to this, but he's real silent about reparations. So people should pay very close attention to that. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Robb from Denver. Robb from Denver said California also tried to pass AB 1536, giving a monthly $1,100 stipend to older and disabled illegals, but Newsom vetoed it this year. Now, check this out, Robb from Denver. I know you know about how they use those C-19 funds in Denver to pay a $1,100 monthly stipend to those illegal migrants in Colorado. So they just giving away money and then turn around and sit there and say that they don't have money. You know what I'm saying? They just give away money and then turn around and sit there and say that they don't have no money. And then look at you like you the one that's crazy. So he propelled this movement forward. Newsom, who took office in 2019, campaigned on the promise of establishing universal health care in California, and advocates have spent the duration of his governorship pushing him to keep that promise. Now, he made universal health care for illegal migrants, but he hasn't made universal health care for California tax-paying United States citizens, though. You cannot talk about coverage for all if you're not talking about coverage for everyone, regardless of their immigration status. Lynn Gish said, well, if that's the case, then shit, just pay for everybody in the world to have health insurance then on the United States. This right here is the political extremism that these people do to try to pander, and then it turns around and bites them. When they say healthcare for all, they should be talking about healthcare for all legal citizens of California, not healthcare for everybody in the damn universe on some planet, some distant planet somewhere. You know what I'm saying? In the Andromeda galaxy, we're going to pay for healthcare for them too, because it's healthcare for all. Shout out to Alonzo. What's good with it, bro? I want y'all to see how ridiculous this sounds. You cannot talk about coverage for all if you're not talking about covering everyone, regardless of their immigration status. Yes, you can. We're talking about all Americans. Do you all hear how they use this nonsense? These are smart dummies. This right here is what you call blue hair buffoonery. This is beta blue hair buffoonery right here. Lynn Gish said Governor Gavin Newsom made it a major platform of his from day one, and I think it's hard to untie these two things. Still, Newsom has faced pressure to look at this. Newsom has faced pressure to do more for undocumented immigrants and do it faster. Who's putting pressure on him to do this stuff? What about the pressure that's being put on him to do stuff for American citizens? Advocates and some legislators lobbied Newsom to roll out this last expansion sooner, in part because of the disproportionate toll C-19 took on essential workers, many of whom are undocumented. They're not supposed to be working anyway. What about the toll that C-19 took on people that are documented that live here? Do you know how many people got robbed out of hazard pay that are essential workers that the state didn't do anything about enforcing? They just let all those companies keep that hazard pay that they should have paid to their employees. The gaslighting is real. You know what I'm saying? This expansion is projected to cost, look at this, look at this. This expansion is projected to cost more than $835 million in the next 6 months and $2.6 billion every year thereafter. So again, this is some stuff right here. This could cross over on a bunch of different series. We could talk about this on the C19 channel. We could talk about this on All Money Ain't Good Money. Look at all this money going out. And this is just in California. Just in California. Previous expansions, which opened the door to more than 1.1 million undocumented enrollees, cost the state approximately $1.6 billion annually, according to past legislative analysis office reports. The total $4 billion price tag, though significant, represents a fraction of Medi-Cal's expansive $37 billion budget. Still, many undocumented Californians will remain ineligible for health insurance. Roughly 500,000 immigrants make too much money to qualify for Medi-Cal, but still can't afford private insurance. What about the amount of Americans that make too much money that can't afford private insurance? Well, I mean, like this is what people should pay attention to, man. People should pay attention to how in America, Americans are afterthoughts. In America, you're an afterthought if you're an American citizen. If you're an American taxpayer, you're an afterthought. Shout out to you, Law. What's good with it, bro? Advocates want to expand covered California to include that population, but the state's ballooning deficit makes that unlikely in the near future. Health disparities among undocumented immigrants. Undocumented immigrants often avoid medical care, making it difficult to compare their health to other Californians. Some studies indicate that they experience higher rates of chronic conditions like heart disease, asthma, and high blood pressure. Immigrants without legal status in California are also more likely to suffer from mental distress and self-report poor health. How do they know that if these people don't report it? Who's reporting this if they don't report it? Like, where, if these people are not providing this information, where are you getting the information? Dr. Efrain Talamantes, Chief Operating Officer at Ultimed in Los Angeles, the largest federally qualified health center in California, said he frequently sees young undocumented individuals who feel healthy but already are having end damage of chronic conditions that have not been detected. How many Californians are dealing with those kind of situations? You know what I mean? How many Californians are dealing with these kind of situations? The change will allow Talamantes and others who serve those communities to give patients affordable, high-level care. Although California offers many undocumented immigrants emergency Medi-Cal and some counties fund their own programs, services can be disjointed with month-long wait times. When these patients now receive Medi-Cal and are part of a managed care health plan with us, then we're responsible for their entire care from primary and specialty to hospital care, Talamantes said. Miriam Pozuelos is one such person. The Los Angeles area mother said the expansion lifts a huge financial burden from her family. Oh, I bet. A financial burden that is not lifted from hard work. It's lifted from the hard work of American taxpayer dollars. You know what I'm saying? She and her husband pay out of pocket for any medical service and also often go without. Both have already applied to full scope Medi-Cal for January. How many of us are walking around here uninsured? Like, this is ridiculous. When me and my family heard about this expansion, we were just really hoping that it would actually come true and that we can start getting the care that we need and not be worried about, I have to pay this enormous bill, Puzuelo said in Spanish. I think that literally everybody thinks that about healthcare. Literally everybody is worried about healthcare bills because healthcare bills bankrupt people. How many people do you know that literally lost every single thing that they have because they came down with a chronic condition like cancer or Parkinson's disease or something like that? Back at the St. John's Community Health Benefit Center, Lopez helps other undocumented immigrant renew his emergency Medi-Cal, which will automatically roll over to full scope next month. Wilder, who is 41, who requested his last name be withheld to protect him from immigration authorities. You're going to be protected from immigration authorities anyway. You're in a sanctuary city. What are you talking about? And this is a California media outlet. Said he needs 2 root canals totaling $8,000. He has searched for months for a cheaper option without success, Wilder said. He also needs medication for high blood pressure, but can't always afford it. The Medi-Cal expansion means he'll finally be able to take care of his health, he said. It's nice seeing them leaving happy and smiling, Lopez says. Even if it takes us 2 or 3 hours, they leave with a sense of relief that they can see a doctor. Everybody should be able to have that sense of relief that they can see a doctor. Don't you guys think? Somebody make it make sense. Look at this. Look at this right here. Hold on real quick. Let's see. Hold on. Boom. California becomes first state to offer health insurance to all eligible undocumented adults. Eligible and undocumented in the same sentence is wild. That's crazy. If you guys agree that eligible and undocumented in the same sentence is wild, give me a thumbs up. If I'm wilding, if I'm the one sounding crazy out here, then give me a thumbs down. To me, that's wild. Undocumented and eligible in the same sentence. Like, somebody make that make sense. Make that make sense. So, again, hot off the press, as you guys can see here, this is an article from December 28th. California becomes the first state to offer health insurance to all undocumented adults. Now, these undocumented adults, they don't got to pay a penny out of this. Now, you know what's crazy? I'm going to tell y'all something that's crazy. If you have a child and you're an American citizen and the mother of your child gets state health care, you as the father is automatically responsible for child support payments, and the state will file a case on you. How does the state do that for undocumented people? If there's an undocumented bro that has an undocumented baby mom, and the undocumented baby mom files for Cal State health insurance, Do y'all think that California Child Support Enforcement Agency is going to come after the undocumented, bro? Hell no, because they don't have no documents. And they're not going to comply with law enforcement. And child support is law enforcement. That's bullshit. But now check this out, though. If an undocumented cis gets pregnant by a citizenship bro, the undocumented cis who gets California Medicaid, California will file a lawsuit for child support enforcement on her citizenship bro baby dad. Make that make sense. And that's facts, Black Spider, because a lot of people don't know that tooth infections can lead to cardiovascular disease. Think about that. Think about how screwed up all of this whole situation is. So now this Cal Matters article right here, it's literally the exact same as that article that we just looked at. You see, they even got the same pictures and everything. This is what I be telling y'all about how all they do is just copy and paste. This right here, this is her. This right here with this lady with the mask on, this is Perla Lopez. Here go your boy Badillo right here. I think his name is Badillo. Both of them is undocumented. Make it make sense. Now I'm gonna say this article, and we're gonna talk about this on BLR on Undocumented Bros, because I think that people will be interested in listening to it. Make sure y'all show Jay the Informant some love. Throw some radiation emoji in the chat and some flames in the chat for him, because he dropped this article into the Discord. And we're going to take a quick look at it. Let me just pull it up real quick. All right, here we go. Cameron crazy as hell. He said she got the Aztec cheekbones. Now check this out. This was crazy right here. You see this right here? They got the commercial for the movie Migration. See that? They got the commercial for the movie Migration on this article here about the migrant crisis. But this movie Migration was actually pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? Your boy actually went to see that. You know what I'm saying? It was some good stuff. But I like them cartoon movies, so all right, here we go. Let's listen to this video real quick.
Back here at home to our south, where thousands of migrants have joined a caravan in Central America that's making its way to the U.S. It comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken prepares to visit Mexico's capital tomorrow. Morgan Chesky reports from the border.
Tonight in southern Mexico, a new migrant caravan is heading north. A group of men, women, and children, whose organizers say is now 8,000 strong, after an estimated 2,000 more joined in a single day. The caravan, last seen in the Mexican state of Chiapas near Guatemala, would be the largest since last year. Many of them desperate and exhausted. This father from Honduras, sharing his 3-year-old daughter, is now too weak to walk. The U.S. border still more than 1,000 miles away. In Eagle Pass, Texas, just days after these stunning scenes of migrant families lining the Rio Grande, tonight, U.S. Customs and Border Protection facing a quiet lull that likely won't last long. Outside an Eagle Pass shelter, we met Osmani, Marianne, and Edison.
¿Dónde van ahora? Where are you going now?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma?
Los Angeles.
LA?
Dallas.
Dallas.
Marianne from Venezuela says she's now waiting until her asylum hearing. After a 5-month journey here, she called dangerous but worth it.
Hey, let me ask y'all this question. Do y'all think that Marianne is looking for a wife? Y'all think if y'all think that Marianne is looking for a wife, give me a thumbs up. If y'all don't, then give me a thumbs down. I think she's looking for a wife.
Waiting until her asylum hearing. After a 5-month journey here, she called dangerous but worth it. Mexico's president now saying he'll meet with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken tomorrow in Mexico City to discuss potential joint solutions. Texas Governor Greg Abbott taking his own steps, installing more barbed wire on the border and busing more migrants to primarily Democratic-led cities such as Chicago and New York, both now buckling under rising numbers.
Governor Abbott has made it clear he wants to destabilize cities and sending thousands of migrants and asylum seekers.
Tonight, as that migrant caravan makes its way north, lawmakers in Washington still need to strike a deal over southern border policy, but as of right now, there is no clear agreement.
Right. Hold on real quick. Migration again. Shout out to Migration. That was a good movie. Shout out to Migration. That was a good movie. But shout out to Alonzo. Alonzo says, I wonder if hearing America is handing out free healthcare is going to make them not want to come to the United States. Bro, anytime I hear something costs free 99, I go the opposite direction. Shit. Shit. Free 99 is always a good repellent, ain't it? So now here it says Mexican officials clear border camp as U.S. pressure mounts to limit migrant crossings. Mexico, desperate to get crossings reopened to its manufactured goods, is starting to indicate that it will crack down a bit on the growing number of people at the border. Now, if Mexico does crack down on this growing number of people at the border, then in theory, right? In theory, that should have a positive effect. That should have a positive effect on the situation. Because remember, if we get that encounter number down, then that encounter number being down will in turn it'll decrease the crossing number, right? So if they actually follow through, that should help somewhat. So now here it says a ragged migrant tent camp next to the Rio Grande is a long way from Mexico's National Palace, where a U.S. delegation met this week with Mexico's president seeking more action to curb the surge of migrants reaching the U.S. border. But as Mexican officials in Matamoros, now again, what does Matamoros mean? And I think that is interesting that they had this meeting in Matamoros. Now, people get mad when you ask these questions, but it don't matter if they get mad or not. What do this stuff mean? What do Matamoros mean in Spanish? Too bad Local Tina ain't in here to translate, but she would lie about it anyway. But what do Matamoros mean? What do Mata mean? Let's start there. But as Mexican officials in Matamoros worked at the camp with bulldozers to clear out what they claimed were abandoned tents, it was a likely sign of things to come. The United States has given clear signs, temporarily closing key border rail crossings into Texas, that it wants Mexico to do more to stop migrants from hopping freight cars, buses, and trucks to the border. Mexico, desperate to get crossings reopened to its manufactured goods, is starting to give signs that it will crack down a bit. That was on display in Matamoros as U.S. Secretary of State Blinken held talks with President Andres Manuel López Obrador in Mexico City. Migrants set up the encampments across from Brownsville, Texas, in late 2022. It once held as many as 1,500 migrants, but many tents were vacated in recent months as people waded across the river to reach the United States. What we are doing is removing any tents that we see that are empty, said Sigismundo Dogan, the head of the local office of Mexico's immigration agency. That name is wild. Sigismundo Dogan. He sounds like a an airbender or something. Homeboy sound like an anime character, don't he? He sound like he know all kind of karate and know how to make all kind of energy blasts. that sound like something that they were saying on the 8-bit Street Fighter. See him on the Dogan. You know what I'm saying? The head of the local office of Mexico's immigration agency. But one Honduran would give only his first name. And see, all these people only give their first name like they Wolverine or something. My name is Logan. That's not fair. I want to only give people the first initial of my first name. Matter of fact, I'm not even giving nobody the first initial of my first name. I'm finna give you the number of the first letter in my first name, and that's about to be it. I'm not telling you no more. I'm finna fade into the background like peace. You know what I'm saying? But one Honduran who would give only his first name, Jose, which probably is not really his first name, claimed that some of the 200 remaining migrants had been practically forced to leave the camp when the clearance operation began late on Tuesday. They ran us out, he said, saying that they were given short notice to move their tents and belongings and felt intimidated by the bulldozers. You had to run for your life to avoid an accident. No, you didn't, because bulldozers don't move that damn fast. You lying. Anybody ever seen a bulldozer move that fast? You had plenty of time to get your stuff out the way if it was only a bulldozer that was coming for you. Now, if it was a pickup truck with a plow on the front of it, then maybe I'd believe it. You know what I'm saying? But you was running from a bulldozer because a bulldozer was chasing you down in a high-speed chase. I'm sorry. I don't buy that. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, shout out to everybody that's watching. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. If you have not subscribed to the channel, help us reach 500 subs by smashing that bell. Hit it twice so that you get the notification. Also, if you haven't liked the video yet, we got 39 likes. If everybody could smash that like button and get us to 45, that'd be great. And also, wherever you're watching from, please share the stream to your social media. Shout out to Robb. Robb got it as far as Matamoros go. Matamoros is named after James Matamoros, a.k.a. St. James the Moor Slayer. Tariq talked about it when there was Black Americans caught up in the cartel violence. Facts. Facts. Mata means delete. You know what I'm saying? Moros means more. And so you know who them folks was that got kicked out of Spain that was navigating the ocean blue in 1492 with your boy Christopher Columbus, who was not Spanish, by the way. There's only a couple. It was only certain people that was cruising the ocean in 1492, and that's because they had got kicked out. You was either a Moros or something else. But they don't talk about that as part of history. You know what I'm saying? But I think more people should actually talk about that. More people should actually look into that. But the question is that if people looked into it and produced content, do the people who it would make look bad, do they have the stomach and the courage to allow that content to stay up? Or would they do like what they do with everything else? Use infrastructure to try to shut it down. So now here it says some migrants moved into a fenced-in area of the encampment where immigration officers said that they could relocate, but fear remained. About 70 migrants flung themselves into the river Tuesday night and crossed into the U.S. They were trapped for hours along the riverbank beneath the layers of concertina wire set up on the order of Texas governor. I don't understand why they would have flung themselves into the river. Why would they do that? Few options exist for the migrants asked to leave the encampment, said Gladys Canis, founder of a Matamoros-based non-governmental group, Ayudendos, a truant fair, or helping them win. The truth is that the shelters are saturated, Canis said. So again, shelters are saturated. When it comes to the migrant crisis, everywhere where like literally all resources involving this migrant crisis, everything is saturated. Why is everything saturated? Because the numbers are unsustainable. The volume, the requirements, everything that's needed for this to continue to endure, it's going to come to a screeching halt when the entire machine breaks, because we are dealing with an issue that is 110% completely unsustainable. But people going to find that out the hard way. She was working at the encampment Wednesday afternoon, encouraging migrants to avoid crossing illegally into the United States, more like encouraging migrants to cross illegally into the United States, especially after several drowned in the last few days attempting to swim the river. So now, mind you, she didn't encourage them to not cross because it was illegal. She encouraged them to not cross because people was drowning. That's facts, Cameron. It's crazy, man. That shit is terrible. This month, as many as 10,000 migrants were arrested daily on the southwest U.S. border. The U.S. has struggled to process them at the border and house them once they reach northern cities. Mexican industries were stung last week when the U.S. briefly closed two vital Texas railway crossings, arguing that Border Patrol agents had to be reassigned to deal with the surge. A non-rail crossing remained closed at Lukeville, Arizona, and border operations were partially suspended at San Diego and Nogales, Arizona. Speaking on Thursday, Lopez Obrador said meetings with the U.S. officials focused on reopening border crossings. So again, as you guys can see, nothing that they're doing is an attempt to try to curtail border encounters. The only thing that they're trying to do is create ease of access and ease of integration. If you guys can see this, then give me a thumbs up. If I haven't done a good job of making that obvious that that's what they're doing, then give me a thumbs down. But that's what they're doing. We have to be careful not to close the crossings. We reached that agreement. The rail crossings are being reopened and the border bridges are returning to normal, he said of the meeting with Blinken, U.S. Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas and Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall. Mexico already has over 32,000 soldiers and National Guard troopers, about 11% of its total forces assigned to enforcing immigration laws. But shortcomings were on display this week when National Guard members made no attempt. Look at this. Mexican National Guard made no attempt to stop 6,000 migrants, many from Central America and Venezuela, from walking through Mexico's main inland immigration inspection point in southern Chiapas near the Guatemala border. So here's my question. Why didn't they make any kind of attempt to stop that? Why would you not make any kind of attempt to stop that? Does that make any sense? Right. I agree, Jacoby. That's a great question. If you guys got any answers for Jacoby's question, make sure y'all throw them in the comment section. Send text message. Risking being sued by the federal government. Why don't they take a step further and just return them back to Mexico? Since Texas is parked on face a lawsuit from federal government for protecting your own borders, why don't they just return them back to Mexico instead of flying them all over the United States? That's a great question. And if you ask me, and I don't know, this is just speculation, but if you ask me, this is because this is Hegelian dialectic. This is the Democrats acting like they're not getting along with the Republicans, but working together to accomplish a common goal, which is to dismantle the FBA voting areas that could be potential power centers. If you ask me, they're trying to dilute them, the political power. You know what I'm saying? In the past, Mexico has let such migrant caravans go through, trusting they would tire themselves out walking along the highway. Now, who does that? This is Mexico's strategy. In the past, Mexico would just let the migrant caravan go through, hoping that they'd get tired. Have you ever seen anybody just let somebody rob a bank and like, man, maybe they'll just run out of gas right in the middle of the robbery and then we can come stop them? Who the hell does that? Shout out to Deformed Pretty Boy. Who does that? Next time I see somebody, next time the police, next.
What kind of shit is that?
Next time the police see somebody committing a crime, it's just like, have y'all ever been too tired to deal with your kids or to deal with some kids, and you be like, I'm gonna just let them tire their ass out, and then once they get tired, I'll deal with them. Anybody that's a parent knows that strategy, right? That strategy only works with kids. That's not gonna work with adults. I'm gonna just let these fools go ahead and rob the place. They get tired by the time they get to the cigarettes, and once they get to the cigarettes, that's when I make my move. Who does that? Who does it like that? Don't nobody do it like that. That's crazy, man. That's wild, man. Mexico has let such migrant caravans go through, trusting they would tire themselves out walking along the highway. That's the dumbest shit I ever heard of in my life. Lopez Orbiter said Thursday that the caravan had been reduced to about 1,600 migrants. And he's lying because he didn't go down there and count. He didn't go down there and count the migrants. You know what I'm saying? So he don't know. But look at this. But wearing the migrants out by obliging Venezuelans and others to hike through the jungle of the Darien Gap between Colombia and Panama, or corralling migrants off passenger buses in Mexico, no longer appears to work. So many people have been hopping freight trains through Mexico that one of the country's two major railroads suspended trains in September because of safety concerns. I bet you they had migrants flying all off the top. They was going under them bridges, and I bet you people was getting stuck when they go through a tunnel like mosquitoes on a damn windshield. That's crazy. The Texas railway closure put a chokehold on freight moving from Mexico to U.S., as well as grain needed to feed Mexican livestock moving south. Lopez Orbiter says he is willing to help, but wants the United States to send more developments to aid migrants' home countries, reduce or eliminate sanctions on Cuba and Venezuela, and start a U.S.-Cuba dialogue. Like you got the Mexican president is advocating for these other countries. See, to me, as soon as the Mexican president had to start advocating for those other countries, that meeting is over. I'm talking about what's going on with your border and with our border. You want me to do something with Cuba? You're not part of Cuba. You don't have anything to do with how we deal with Cuba. I'm not about to listen to you about that nonsense. But that's what the Mexican president feels emboldened to do. And the reason why he feels emboldened to do that is because Joe Biden is a weak and feeble old man who literally anytime he opens up his mouth or steps out of an airplane makes the United States look very bad on a world stage. You know what I'm saying? So, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for being late as hell. I really appreciate all y'all for coming out, man. Shout out to everybody that's in here. If y'all haven't subscribed, subscribe. If y'all haven't liked the video, please like the video. If y'all haven't shared it, make sure y'all share it. Shout out to the people that watch. Make sure y'all hashtag replay gang on the replay. And as always, ladies and gentlemen,